This is my shop. It's very messy because I'm installing white oak floors and I need to move a lot of wood around to make room. And when I came across the tropical woods I had saved, I figured, why not use it instead of finding another place to store it? Why not use it for something really practical? And you know what I've been wanting to make forever? A really chunky chopping board. You know, one of those boards which you come across every now and then in a fancy cooking store, and the price is like, whoa! High, very high. And that's with maple or walnut, never mind purple heart or camaroo or something like that. So I figured, why not go for it? Let's use this beautiful wood and make the ultimate cutting board. It's kind of funny. You may think you have a lot of wood to work with when you look at this pile. And these pieces, I mean, I've collected them for years. Some of them I've received as gifts, some I bought. And I would say I started out with probably 12 board feet, which is quite a bit for this project. And they're all of different lengths and thicknesses. As you can see, I have a variety of species here. Ipe, angel heart, camaroo, purple heart, and a couple of boards which I'm not even sure what they are exactly. But all tropical woods rank high on the Janka scale. They're really hard and dense. Oh, and by the way, did you know that the Janka scale measures the force required to embed a small steel ball into a sample of wood? I thought that was interesting. And if you look at this, I mean, you can obviously see that maple and walnut is much farther down. They're softer. The real challenge here is to utilize as much as I possibly can of the wood. Since the pieces are not all of perfect length and thickness, I've divided them into 2 sections. And that way I was able to utilize the bigger pieces and the smaller pieces. Since I'm doing an end grain cutting board, there will be 2 glue-ups. And for the first glue-up, I'm making 2 boards, which later on will turn into 1 board. And right now it doesn't matter if those 2 boards are of the same height, but all the pieces in each glue-up obviously need to be of the same height. So it's a bit of a puzzle to figure out exactly where you can place each piece of wood and try to get as little waste as possible. The other thing I wanted to make sure of was the length. I wanted the final board to measure about 23 inches in length, so I figured if I got these boards to be about 24 inches long, then I could do the glue-up lengthwise as opposed to the short direction. So for gluing, I'm using Type Bond 3, which is waterproof. And so one of the boards is about 2 1/8 inch thick, and the other one is about 1 3/4 inch thick. And at this point I started to get a little worried as to how heavy exactly the final board will become, because each of these were quite heavy on their own. So now I have my 2 boards and I need to cut the final pieces to glue up. At first I was planning on making the board 2 1/2 inch thick, But I realized if I did that, it would only be about 14 inches deep, whereas if I cut it to 2.1/8 inch thick, I could get it to be a little over 17 inches deep. And the proportion there was just a lot better. So at this point, I just cut both boards into the same size strips. And, you know, I think the height is plenty. It still feels quite chunky and substantial, but it's not so high that it's difficult to move and just too cumbersome. One thing that's kind of funny is just how much material is eaten up by the machines. The jointing, the planing, the table saw, the offcuts, the sanding. I mean, I calculated that more than half of the board foot of wood disappeared. And when I first gathered my materials, I was like, yeah, this is a lot, more than I'm gonna need, but I might as well mill up all the wood and prepare it anyway. Oh, and yeah, here's where I'm feeling the weight of it for the first time, and it is heavy. It's a good weight. But anyway, what I was saying is that the wood, it just dwindles down. You know, you think you have more to start with, but so much is removed by the processing. It took a while to sand the board down, and of course you want to sand it evenly so there's no rocking. And it's funny just how much harder the purple heart is. I had to sand extra on each piece of purple heart just so it would be even with the rest of the board. Oh, and this is a rubber product, which I bought a long time ago at like a farm store. And I figured it would be perfect to cut up for feet, so the whole board would be steady on the counter. And I just used contact cement to attach it, which worked great. And finally, I added a bunch of my mineral oil and beeswax polish, which is food safe. And this wood is quite thirsty, so I first add a liberal amount, turn it over, add on the other side, and then I add another coat and sometimes a third coat before wiping it off to really saturate the wood. And here you can see the scale of it. So it's heavy but not massive, so quite nice. And the final dimension is 23 by 17 by 2 inches. So the final board. It weighs a whole 21.8 pounds or 9.8 kilos, so quite heavy. And as a comparison, here's one of the boards I made last week, which next to this just looks miniature. So yeah, it's really nice. Oh, and quickly I want to remind anyone in Virginia that I'm having a meetup on July 13th from 9 a.m. till noon at Woodcraft in Richmond, Virginia. So come on by if you're in the area. But anyway, I of course had to test out the board, and I love the size of it. I do a lot of cooking, and having a board where you can chop a variety of things without having to move them off the board, I think is really nice. Now this is so big and heavy that I'm mostly spot cleaning it, not really washing it in the sink, which is fine. And I love how it feels like a real chef's board, like a $500 cutting board, which just belongs in a nice kitchen, and that's meant to be used for real. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below, and I'll see you soon. Bye!